And the other thing too about having the same guys on all the jobs, everybody knows each other's expectations.
Yes.
I know your time frame. I know exactly the quality of your work. You know that I'm going to pay you at such and such times, before, after, whatever it is. And I've got so many more jobs lined up for you. Like, there's almost no questions except for what color paint this time. That's it.
Yeah.
The job is done. You know what I mean?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Probate House Guy podcast. I am Brad Woodall, the Probate House Guy. I am here with my buddy Jesse Leblanc in Atlanta. Jesse and I have known each other, for, what do you think, like 2017?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably been about 7 years or so, give or take. Yep.
Yeah, we met at a meetup group locally here in Atlanta a long time ago, and we've been kind of on the same path, or, gone through the same struggles as to growing our businesses and our real estate portfolios and stuff. Jesse used to be a cop, actually. So that's kind of cool. Went from a police officer to financial freedom, traveling the world and doing all of the cool things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jesse, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so going way back when, it was just like I was up here and then pay cut, went to like the bottom level of real estate and then all the way up to where I am today. I used to be in finance and marketing, work for many large company corporate offices. And finally, one day, I was just kind of tired of working the W-2 job at a corporate office, and talked to this one guy who happened to be our photographer for my wedding. And the guy was like, hey, here in DeKalb County, which is just outside of Atlanta, he's been a police officer for their 20 plus years. And I was like, you know what? I've always watched the police shows. I've always been interested in it. I guess I'll give it a try. Walked into their office and they're like, nope, sorry, we're done. It'll be another 6 months to a year before we have tryouts. And as I'm walking out the door, the lady was like, hey, hold on. Someone just canceled. We got one spot. Do you want to do it? I said, man, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so 2 days later, I'm out there sitting, doing all my sit-ups, running, puking, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, I failed. There's no way in God's green earth that I just pass all these tests. Little did I know, days later, they're like, you've got the job. So I quit corporate and went straight into being a police officer, and did that from 2009 until 2014.
Okay.
And then 2014 started into real estate. And my start of real estate was actually, again, here it goes, pay cut. I probably could have been working at McDonald's and been making more money. But I started doing Section 8 inspections around Clayton County, DeKalb, and Fulton County. And let me tell you, I would spend 3/4 of the day and I might bring home $75 or something a day. You're doing $8 to $12 per visit, per inspection. And each inspection might be 30 minutes to an hour long. So literally I could have been making more money somewhere else. But it was a great start because over the course of about 8 months, I was meeting investors, contractors, etc. out there. Had no idea what the heck I was doing. And then so by the end of 2014 is when I initially started ExCo Management. And that company, little did I know, I was actually becoming a general contractor before I even knew what a GC was. I just knew I had investors that had houses that need work done. I have contractors that I'm meeting all the time and they need jobs. And I was like, what can I do? So there's my entrepreneur mindset is, let me just put 2 and 2 together. I'm going to be the middleman. I'm going to mark up this guy's fee, make this guy pay me. I pay him. I'm good to go. I don't have to run around and do inspections. I can just sit back, make phone calls, take pictures, and make jobs happen and create money. And that was about 3 or 4 months of doing that. And then I got hooked up with my very first and only partner back in 2015. And I did a lot of work for him. And he's like, hey, I'm doing a lot of flips. You're awesome at being a project manager. You want to work with me? So I partnered with him for the first year. We did a ton of flips, lost 80 grand on one of them. That was a huge mistake. I can get into that one later, but that was a huge mistake, thinking that below grade square footage, fixing up a basement, adding 2 extra bedrooms and a bathroom would make $100 and something thousand difference in a house. Never again. So, I got rid of that partner. And then 2016, I just started doing everything on my own and hired a full-time project manager who's still with me to this day. Since the beginning of 2015, has been with me for 9 years or so now, and went into flips, Had a wholesale company for 3 to 4 years, maybe 5. Got rid of the wholesale company. I was staging. And as you see now, kind of do transactional funding for wholesalers after I recognized that that was something that folks needed. And I was a wholesaler, ran a wholesale company, so I was already fully aware of what people want, what people expect, how to do it. And man, along the way, bought rentals, got a nice little portfolio now, and slowly but surely still adding to it. So that's kind of the real quick gist from way back when to about where we're at today. And of course, as you already said, traveling. We've got a monthly budget. My wife and I travel. We try to go outside the country as often as we can, but we're traveling at least once a month. Literally just got back from a British Virgin Island cruise. We're going to Montana skiing next week, and then Thailand in a month and a half or so. So we're definitely staying busy, retired the wife, and man, that's where we're at today.
That's great. Yeah, I love seeing all your travel and stuff. And I know, COVID kind of drove you banana where you couldn't travel because you guys travel so much. I've known you for years. And met your wife before. She's awesome, and you guys are just awesome people. So tell me about, you've run a lot of businesses over the years, and you and I have kind of been through this evolution of real estate, kind of been in the market in the amount of time we have, and we've seen these ebbs and flows and these market changes and these market cycles. Tell me what you've learned about running a team and what you've learned about running a business through all the different market cycles.
Yeah, so one of the toughest things to overcome is to be able to control your emotions. So many times people are just like, I've got the money sitting in the bank. I've got to get another deal. I've got to do another flip. I've got to buy another rental. And then they just, their pockets, the money in their pockets just start burning a hole, right? They're just like, I got to do it. I'm antsy. Or they're on social media. They're seeing all these other investors or wholesalers that have deals. And so many people get caught up in that. And then they just go buy something off of emotions, or they buy something because they see everybody else doing it. And instead of actually asking the other person, hey, what is your actual numbers? So many people on social media just want to put I'm doing all these houses, I'm doing this and this and this. Yet I know people who are sitting there doing 50 houses a year and 25 or 30 of them break even or lose. And I'm like, what's the point of even doing all those? I would rather do 10 a year and make good bank than doing 50 and stressed out all freaking year. So controlling your emotions, making sure that you're really doing your homework and your research on the front end. And then, of course, knowing what your ARV is and your rehab numbers and stuff, but truly running your numbers in the beginning, not letting your emotions get the best of you, and making instead of a guesstimate, making more of an educated guesstimate, if you will, instead of just a straight, oh yeah, I've done one over here before. The rehab is about such and such, because there's always unforeseen numbers. And then as the market starts to change, there's a lesser of a pool of buyers that are out there. Your days on market are going to take a little bit longer. So now instead of flipping or rehabbing and selling a house in 3 months, it might take you 5 months now. So now you need to make sure that you adapt to those market changes, change your Excel spreadsheet, your calculations and stuff to account for your extra holding cost. So as far as running the team, it's constantly, the second we learn something as the leaders, we need to be able to then share that to the rest of our team so that way they can be aware of those things. Because most of our team members are just focused on doing their specific task. They don't know about all the other little small things that can affect what they're doing. And that's part of our job as the leader, to be able to understand what's going out there in the market, take all those small things, and then just give our team just the little tidbits that they specifically need to keep an eye out for you in order for you to then be able to make the best guesstimate, educated guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, in essence, making sure you're buying deals right. I stress that to my team constantly. In fact, I was just on a phone call before we got on this with my acquisitions guy. He's worked for me for 4 years now.
Yeah.
And we had bid on a property in East Cobb that's probably will be one of our most expensive acquisitions we've ever done. Almost $500,000 acquisition, right? Yeah. That's not including rehab. And he's like, well, the guys, it's a probate situation. The guy's taking bids. And I said, if we lose it, we lose it. He's like, well, we could give him a little bit more. I said, no, absolutely not. My number, our number is our number, and we stick to that number, and we do not go up. Because for all we know, he probably doesn't have any other offers. She's just right. Creep that number up. you stick to your numbers. And he's like, well, what if we don't get it? And I said, then we don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I am not willing to, on that kind of house and that kind of deal, that can go sideways really fast, and we could be projecting $100,000 profit and end up losing $50,000.
Yeah,
just like that.
Yep.
And I'm not. That's too risky of a deal to just try to make our numbers work. So, from your perspective, having a team, what controls have you put in place to like make sure that you guys are still buying right? Because to be successful in this business, you have to buy right.
Yeah,
you have to.
I mean, let's be honest. We still, no matter how good we think we are or how good we've been in the past, we all make mistakes. I literally just had exact same mistake as you were saying, hey, let's not do that, right? I was bringing on a new employee, a good friend of mine, teaching him along the way. And you know what? I made that same very well mistake. The emotions, a little bit of the emotions, but we also made the mistake of not understanding that high of a value house, what it's going to take, and then the market too. And then I'll get into your question, but this was at the end of last year. Rates were still pretty high. They were maybe getting ready to kind of flatten out and then come down a little bit, but we didn't really know where it was going. And most investors were still sitting on the sidelines waiting. Like, I feel like people are just now starting to come off the benches and finally starting to buy some stuff.
Yep.
But I was kind of ahead of the game a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can already see it kind of going up a little bit. Let's just see what happens. So we bought a house that should be completely demoed, new build. It's literally the last lot on the same street with over $1 million houses. And here I am selling a house for like $450,000. And everybody that I talked to said, yes, the house is definitely worth 450 plus. However, by the time I listed it on the market, I think we finally ultimately sold it for like 375. I lost $50,000 on it. Holding costs and stuff at that high of a value ate me alive.
Yep.
And everybody even said, yes, a year ago, 6 months ago, we would have done this. But now, because of the rates, we don't really know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen next year by the time we finish the house. So we have to account for that. Now, I couldn't complain. I'm like, you know what? If I were you, I would do the exact same thing, but that doesn't make it any easier and better for me. So I still made a mistake like that. But what I normally do now with the team is, of course, it's the same guy, for example, right? It's go back through previous deals. Okay, for example, 6 months ago, I just looked at 2 emails this morning. 6 months ago, we told this seller that we were going to buy it at this price. And yeah, sure, that wholesaler or that seller is pushing it out at X price. We backed out of the deal. Now 6 months later, hey, what did it sell for? So now we can go back and see, where were we with our numbers? Were we right? Were we a little bit too conservative? Or holy shit, we made a mistake. We would have paid way more. I'm glad we didn't buy that property. And so it's good to be able to go back and learn from either A, your mistakes, or if you haven't had any mistakes yet, learn from what you didn't buy and what would have happened had you bought the property, instead of just always looking ahead and not ever looking back to figure out what mistakes you could have or did make. So that's one thing that we like to do, is just kind of go back over info and really figure out where we're at, where our target is at, and where we could have been at or what we would have lost.
That's a great exercise there. In fact, I've got a meeting scheduled with my team next week in the office where we're going to run through rehabs, because as you and I both know, in the last 2 years, rehab budgets have gone up ridiculous, way higher than inflation. I mean, 30-40% more than they were just 2 years ago.
Yep.
Right. So I've been kind of hinting at my acquisitions guy. I actually went on an appointment with him a couple weeks ago for the first time in years. Right. And I walked through and I said, well, this is going to cost this. And he was like $30,000 off on his numbers.
Yes.
And I said, dude, we're not what we were 2 years ago. Like, this costs this now. This costs that now. Because he doesn't see the rehab. Like, I manage the rehabs because I don't do, like, I only take on 2 or 3 flips at a time.
Yeah.
I personally manage them. I don't have a PM. I'm managing them, managing my subs. You know, before we got started on this call, right? Lowe's Delivery calls me, hey, you know, what's the lockbox code so we can get in, right? I'm still managing that myself, but
yeah,
I purposely keep my rehabs like 2 or 3 at a time, no more than that, just because mentally I can't handle more than that, right?
Agreed.
But with the team, we go through that retroactively, and I frequently send them deals. It's more of like I see some that are like still listed on Zillow that we missed out on, and somebody bought it and rehabbed it, and I'll send them, oh, this ended up selling for that. Look at this price reduction. Da da da. Yep. It's more of like probably stroking my own ego, like
sure,
right. So listen to me. But I've made mistakes too. I've lost money on some deals before. Fortunately, not like a ton of money.
Yeah.
But I've also I did a deal actually. Was it last summer or the summer before? My acquisitions guy wanted to sort of do a deal, and he had a little bit of money. And I said, well, why don't you fund the rehab on it, and we'll split the profits.
Nice.
And at the end of the day, this was a deal where we were kind of trying to hit the seller's number. I knew we would have no problem selling the house, right? But I paid a little bit more than I wanted to pay, but I did that on purpose because this was a teaching lesson to him.
Nope.
And I knew that this teaching lesson wouldn't burn me. Like, I was very, very confident in my numbers. But then rehab came in a little over budget, because I have literally never, ever, ever come in under budget on rehab. Ever.
I know.
Never. And it came in a little bit over budget, not that much. But we went from, it was a really thin deal to begin with. We were only projecting like a $25,000 profit on a $400,000 ARV, which is not that great. But I knew it was a sure thing. Like, I knew it would sell no problem. So I wasn't concerned about that. And we ended up like only netting 12 grand profit. And he was so upset when he only got 6 grand of the 12. And I said, all right, let's go back through retrospectively, and let's look at what happened here. And do you understand why? He's like, well, all these holding costs. And I said, this is why. This is why I'm very firm on my numbers, because I still give him an MAO.
Gotcha.
I don't let my acquisitions go. I love the guy to death, but he gets happy ears, and I don't let every number I still have to approve.
Yeah.
And there was this learning lesson to and I give him those once or twice a year.
Same thing. Yep.
Keep him in check to say, hey, there's a reason, like, to my madness, right? I'm not just saying no to deals because I want to be an a-hole. I'm saying no to deals because this is a math problem. Yeah. And the math is the math is the math.
Yep, that's right. Science, baby.
Right. So that's great. Love that. And it sounds like you kind of keep the same people for a long time. You've spoken very highly of your PM. What have you done to kind of like take care of this guy over the years so that he's kind of stays loyal to you? Like, what you've told me about it, but tell the audience.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So obviously back in the day, he had his set salary, and it was already kind of questionable a little bit for me, but it's like, look, I don't want to be a project manager anymore. I hate running and doing all those types of tasks. It takes up way too much of my time. And let's be frank with it. I'm too nice, and I'm going to end up letting people run over me with their prices and stuff. And it's just not for me. So that was the biggest reason why I kind of went with him. But over the years, of course, increased his salary a little bit. But then once COVID was coming on, I'm like, hey, instead of increasing the salary, I don't know how many deals I'm going to have. And I still have a set salary I've got to pay my guy. So it's like, shoot, I want to still be able to give him bonuses. I still want to like increase his pay, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So I finally came up with, hey, let me give an extra $1,500 to $2,000 at the end of every project. Mm-hmm. Instead of increasing the salary, because then it's like, hey, then if I slow down on projects, he's just got a lower salary, but at least he's still making a living, So that's what I've done is now every single project, as long as the rehab is more than 2 to 3 weeks long, I'll give him that minimum $1,500. If it's a full-on project, I'll probably give him $2,000. And if I know I'm going to be making bank on it, I might bump it up to $2,500, which is rare, but it does happen. And so then that way, he doesn't need to be incentivized. He's been with me forever. He's an amazing guy. He's got my credit cards. He has access to everything. I mean, he's just like a brother. So we don't have any kind of problems there. He's extremely loyal, and we go back and forth. I do stuff for his wedding anniversaries. I do stuff for his wife's birthday. Just little small things that you can do as a normal human outside of work in general. Just be nice and sincere and care about people. What would you want people to do for you, right? That alone is going to actually keep your employees. But the money, of course, is just gravy on top for both he and I. So that's what I've done to keep him around. And he was always wanting more and more projects. So sometimes I'm just like, no, I don't want to get into too much. Let me just keep it at my pace. I know you'd like to make more. he just loves staying busy. So it's like, okay, as long as I just do one after the other, nice, slow and steady, we're good to go. Keep him within a certain mileage or a certain time frame distance, 45 minutes to an hour max, preferably less, to where his house and the rest of our crew is at, because no one likes to be driving in traffic, and they like working early, they like working late, they like working weekends. So I try to be as respectful as I can and keep projects close.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of do the same thing depending on, I have different crews in different areas of Atlanta. I've kind of acquired certain trades, and I have some that will go, my painter will go like wherever. He's done stuff up in like Blue Ridge for me.
Jeez.
And down south, like, and we had one down like near Macon.
Yep.
I'm like, are you sure you want to go that far? Because I'm giving him like, hey, here's the job. You can tell me no, and I'll find somebody. It's okay. And he's like, no, Mr. Brad, I'll do it. You know, it's like, okay, I've had the same painter for years and years.
Yep.
I try to take care of my people, and does it cost me a little bit more money? Yeah, it does, right? But there's a value in that loyalty and a value in that relationship where they'll do whatever you want versus, you know, when you're cutthroat and your contractors or your subs to death, they don't give a crap about you. Like, if the money stops, they stop, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so you got to make sure that you're playing that balance, right? And having someone, you got to watch your costs, right? Like, at the bottom line, you got to watch your costs, but
you do. But like you said, there's also that you're not as stressed. I'd rather pay a little bit more for the removal of that stress that you would have to pay less to deal with somebody else who's cutting corners. And the other thing too about having the same guys on all the jobs, everybody knows each other's expectations.
Yes.
I know your time frame. I know exactly the quality of your work. You know that I'm going to pay you at such and such times, before, after, whatever it is. And I've got so many more jobs lined up for you. Like, there's almost no questions except for what color paint this time. That's it.
Yeah.
The job is done. You know what I mean? So there's something to say about that. And a lot of people who are so focused on trying to be as cheap as they can, to me, tells me that they didn't do their initial homework on the property itself. They bought it for too much, and now they're having to be cheap. And then they're probably, going to hope for a higher purchase price and then get screwed. And what are they going to do? They're going to take it out on their rehab costs, which means their contractors. When at the end of the day, it was your fault as the buyer, as the investor. You bought it too much. You're the one not treating your team the way you should. And then, you should be the one that feels the burn in the butt, not them.
Definitely, man. We could go on all day about rehab stuff. I want to transition into talking about transactional funding. You've got Wholesalers Transactional Funding, a company you created, probably 2 years ago, maybe now?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know the exact date, but actually probably closer to 3 now.
So tell me about the evolution of that, and tell me a little bit about what you guys do, and why that? Why did you pick that, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that's whenever I was coming out of stepping away from the wholesale world, at least as far as running the wholesale team and having these wholesale deals. So it was just before, or I guess right around COVID time, I guess, honestly. It's like, okay, we definitely know right now so many more, or so few deals are going to be out there. Sellers didn't want anybody in their houses. There's just going to be a lull before we finally get back into a really good wholesale market. And so I was like, you know what? I still need to continue my traveling. I still need to keep a certain level of income. I still need to keep deals for my teams. And if we do have a year or two lull of flips and I'm barely breaking even or not even breaking even to be able to pay salary for my project manager, he's somebody I definitely want to keep until the day I die. So it's like, how do I make this happen? So that's where I was coming up with what else is related to wholesale, what else is related to real estate. I've got all my private lenders that have already given me funds for projects that I pay a monthly interest on that's not dedicated to a specific project. I'm like, well, I got to pay these people. I want to keep the money. So what do I do? And that's kind of how I came up with Wholesalers Transactional Funding. And ever since then, the first year I was doing everything on my own, and then found an amazing executive assistant who has been, she does at least 90-something% of the work. It's just absolutely amazing. So it gives me the ability to then be able to travel wherever we want and still be able to send wires from a cruise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it has been a little stressful at times. 2022 we did really good. And in 2023, which I found out for a lot of investors, lenders, flippers, etc., that 2023 was a really tough year for a lot of folks. 2023, we made about $105,000 less than I did in 2022. And I actually, due to some insurance overhead expenses, fraud, cyber insurance, all this kind of stuff, I ended up losing 40 grand last year. But already this year, in the first 2 months, we've already done more than we did in the last 4 months of the prior year. So business is definitely starting to pick back up, which I kind of figured it would. People are coming off the benches. More wholesalers are getting back out there. Buyers are out there. So yeah, that's what really honestly led me into building the business, having the additional capital, wanting to keep all my team and myself afloat. What do I do with it? Dealing with COVID and getting away from being a wholesaler and the stress of just dealing with teams and trying to train them every single week, staying on top of them. I was just trying to find a way out of having to constantly answer questions, train people, and deal with people. I'm like, I just want to get away from all of that. It was just a lot of stress between that, flipping, rentals, lending. It was a lot.
Yeah, and if I see a lot of, that's why I've kind of niched down to just do like the probate stuff, right? Because I was chasing all the things, right? And then it's like, okay, I can make money on this deal. I can make money on this. I can make money here. There's a million ways to make $1 million in this business, right? So then you got to like focus on something. And it seems like you're still doing some flips, but you're mostly focused on wholesalers transactional funding. By the way, what is transactional funding? Some people know what it is, some people don't. So tell me.
Yeah. So transactional funding is generally meant for wholesalers or investors who are double closing. So they're buying one deal, as we call it the A to B transaction, and then same day they're selling it to their end investor, which is the B2C or the back end transaction. So there's either states, for example, like North Carolina, if you double close, you have to bring your own funds, or a private lender like us, you have to bring in the funds for the separate transaction. Back in the day, and of course in other states, you can use pass-through funding. So you could use the end buyers, your investors' funds, as they come in, they send their wire for the second transaction, and then the closing attorney or title company will use those funds to actually fund your initial purchase. So there are states like North Carolina that don't allow that. There's some attorneys or title companies that just feel that it's illegal to use pass-through funding. And so that's when someone like us would be used. And then there's folks that are just like, hey, I wholesale, but I'm also a real estate agent. And it's kind of questionable for me to be an agent and use somebody else's funds, pass-through funding. If I ever get audited, you know what? I don't want to get a lawsuit or anything else. So I would rather just spend the extra small fee for transactional funding to know that when I go to bed at night, I don't have anything to worry about. Deal is done. Seller's happy. Buyer's happy. I made my money. Everybody walks away happy. The other scenario that transactional lending is good for would be same day or single closing seller finance deals. And then the other, and I'll get into that really quick, the other would be same day, it's still a double close, but it's an investor who might be buying a deal and then same day refinancing it with their other long-term lender. And as long as their long-term lender is okay, they're creative, they're investor-friendly, they understand what's going on. And the good thing about that is I, as an investor, could go in and buy a house that's worth $100. I could buy it at 65 grand. Let's say it's rent ready. We're not going to get into rehab. Let's say it's rent ready. They buy it at 65,000. They already have their back-end lender that's going to do a 30-year, and they're going to pay up to 80% of whatever the value is. Well, that's 80 grand, but what you have to be able to do is buy it first to then own it, to then be able to refinance. Because if you just go to your lender up front, they're going to want 20% down, and they're only going to fund 80. Well, that's 80% of the 65, and you're going to have to come with 20% down. So it's a good way for an investor to be able to get into, it could be a flip, but let's just say a rental. It's a good way for an investor to get into a rental with zero or very, very, very little out of their own pocket. Because again, they're paying 65 for it. They use our fee, which is, if it's less than 100 grand, it's $1,000. So it costs them $1,000. And then they just do same day refinance, and their lender is going to pay up to 80 grand because the value of the house is worth 100. Well, they only want to refinance 70. They're literally walking away from closing with a few $1,000 check zero money out of pocket. They've got a rental, good to go. So that's another way that they can use transactional funding.
And the lender, and some people will be like, well, that sounds like mortgage fraud. No, the lender is perfectly aware of what's going on,
That's
right?
correct.
Because I do that. I borrow private money to buy rentals, and then I do a rate and term refinance.
Exactly.
See, if you do a cash out, in most cases, there's seasoning requirements. But a lot of the DSCR lenders out there, and these are big organizations, they're okay with a rate and term, and they totally are aware that you're buying it with private money. They don't care because they're going to give you 80% of the appraised value right then and there. So I've done that to acquire all of my rental properties. I buy them with private money, and I immediately, I didn't even think about it. I should have started the application process before I even bought it. I always wait, and then like the next day I'll apply for a rate and term, and then within 3 to 4 weeks we're closing, and I'm paying off my private lender.
Yep.
And then I'm getting into long-term financing. But a lot of people, and that some might call that the burst strategy, but like it kind of is, but it's kind of like just a way to, it's just money arbitrage.
Yeah. Exactly.
At the end of the day, I do it. And if you're not doing that, like if you're buying things the traditional way and putting 20%, you already have the equity. Your 20% is already.
If you're buying it right.
Correct. If you're buying it right.
Yep.
Right. You're not paying retail. You're buying it at a discount. You're buying it right. You're golden. Like it's fine, so that's awesome. I love that strategy. And, so many, like you mentioned earlier about the agent that wants to do things above board. That's me. I've been an agent since 2017. I double close everything. I only assign if I'm assigning it to, like, if I'm going to keep something as a rental, everything gets contracted in my wholesale flipping company, and then I'll assign it to my rental LLC. Right. Those are the only times I do assignments, because usually I'll pay like a $5,000 fee to my flipping company just to, like, that's my cost of, acquisition or whatever, $7,500, right? And yeah, I'm just moving money from one pocket to another, really. But at the end of the day, that's the only times I do assignments. I just double close everything. It makes me sleep better at night. Does it cost me a little bit more money? Yeah, but I've never had to worry about someone questioning how much I'm making. My LLC is always on the settlement statement.
Yep.
The seller's perspective and transparency. I bought their house.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I sold it 5 minutes later, but I bought their house. But I also don't contract stuff unless I'm prepared to close on it.
That's
right.
Correct. Yeah,
even if I don't have a buyer, I'm still buying that property. If I tell you I'm buying your property, I'm buying your property.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's just being honest.
Well, then you already have your backup strategies. Otherwise, you wouldn't get into the deal. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's a no-brainer. But most of these folks, most of the wholesalers aren't there. They're not investors. They've never bought a property before. They've never owned anything before. They just know they're going to sell it to somebody else or back out of the deal. Whereas you've been doing this long enough. You are an investor. So you already know, again, you've already talked to your team. You've already set your max offer, and don't let the emotions get to you.
Yeah. And also, I was doing a lot of transactional funding back in 22, which was like the glory days. Let's say I was selling stuff to hedge funds, man. I was $40,000-$50,000 a transaction selling to because they were paying ARV even if it needed repairs. It was insane. I'm like, wait a second, I can buy this, do a rehab on it, make $40,000, or I can sell it tomorrow to this hedge fund and still make $40,000.
Mm-hmm. Without the risk.
With no risk. Why would I not sell it to? No, but in September 22, slammed on the brakes. Hedge funds all bailed out in the span of like 30. I had one try to cancel a transaction on me, and we won't get into it in this video, but you had some that canceled some transactions.
Oh, yeah.
Some pretty shady stuff.
Yeah.
For sake of anonymity, I'm not going to get into that in this video, but that stopped in a heartbeat in September 22. Like just boom, all of a sudden. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great tool. If someone wants to get in contact with you guys to do the transactional funding, how do they get in touch with you? And you mentioned a little bit of the cost. What does it typically cost?
Yeah, so our website is wholesalerstransactionalfunding.com, and our fees are very, very, very simple. It's $1,000 for anything less than $100,000 flat fee with a $30 wire fee, but generally anything over $100,000 is just a 1% fee with the $30 fee. And that's for all states except for California. California is a $1,500 minimum or 1.5%. I generally don't like to deal with California. We will if we have to. It's a pain in the butt. But every other state, again, is 1% or a $1,000 minimum.
That's super competitive, 1%. I've paid up to 2% on transaction funding before. 1% is super, super competitive. That's a fantastic rate.
Yeah, we've thought about going up a little bit. Some of our competition has gone up a little bit. But you know what? I again, running a wholesale company for so many years as well, we're not out to try to gouge everybody. You know, I'd rather have referrals. I'd rather have repeat business, and having a really good competitive rate, I feel like, is going to build a better relationship with folks, more referrals out there. And then maybe later on down the road, if we have to, it might be a couple $100 fee or something for admin fees or paperwork fees or so, especially now with the increased insurance costs and stuff. And there's so much fraud out there. I know of this one specific person, and I normally wouldn't say things, but since this is something that a lot of people, if there is anybody watching this that does lending, we do have one specific person that I know has been able to steal well over $1 million, and he's reached out to hundreds probably of different lenders and transactional lenders. It's Justin Nugent out of Florida, and he's got FBI case on him. We've sent stuff in. He actually hit best transaction funding. He actually got Dwayne from best transaction funding for $500,000. And wow. There's really no insurance and stuff that'll cover these types of things.
No.
And we've been reached by 7 other brokers who have come to us, and it was this guy's files. We just had another one this morning from another lender in DFW. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, while I got you on the phone, since we're all lenders, even though we're competitors, situation like this, you never want somebody, you know, we're all humans, we're all great people. You never want somebody to have to go through that kind of stuff. So because of all this fraud and scam that's out there, it's really, really scary. And so we might have to increase a little bit down the road. But for right now, I'm trying to keep it at a very competitive rate and try to look out for all of our wholesalers and investors that are out there.
That's great. And there's a lot of scumbags in this business. And for some of these that don't know, I was a fraud investigator for over a decade before I got into real estate. I did huge, massive identity theft rings with financial institutions. I was working with the feds. I've taken down these crazy operations that are stealing millions of dollars. It's insane the amount of fraud out there. And the stat, you were in law enforcement, right? And I work with law enforcement regularly. Those people just get a slap on the wrist.
Yes.
That's it. It's wild. I've seen people steal hundreds of millions of dollars and get like a year in jail.
Yeah.
That's it. And get out early.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Good behavior. Well, yeah, of course. Good behavior. Yeah. Because the sooner I get out, the more millions I can get again.
It's wild. Right. Yeah. So, well, Jesse, man, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it. So you talked about a lot, shared a lot of value. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, obviously they can go to Wholesalers Transactional Funding. And how else can they get in touch with you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so obviously they can hit my social media. They can hit my Facebook, is if they want to hit my personal Facebook page, Jesse Leblanc. And man, best thing to do is Wholesalers Transactional Funding. Go there. That'll be a great place to reach out to either myself or my executive assistant, which is Michelle Malavasi. So that's really the best, easiest ways. But if you look up my name, again, Jesse Leblanc, on pretty much any of the social media handles, you'll find me. You can see this beautiful face right here. You know, now that the wife's got me putting some lotion and stuff, trying not to make me look like I'm 43 anymore.
Right. We're getting old, aren't we? Yeah, I'm turning 40 next year. I'm getting old, man.
Hey, it's the big 4-0. What's what month?
I'm July next year, so I'm about to turn 39.
The 39 coming up. Yeah. You got a little bit of time then.
That's right. My wife just turned 40 like last month. So
did she really?
Yeah. So she's robbing the cradle there, huh? So, well, hey man, thanks for coming on today, Jesse. It's always good chatting with you, brother. Good to catch up. I know we haven't chatted in a little while. We need to go have lunch or something sometime. So
I'm good for it. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Good. Well, thanks again for coming today. And guys, check out Jesse. He's a good dude.